Wrist check. I am wearing the new Seamaster with the black wave dial on the mesh bracelet. Upcoming review is in the works on this beauty. Now, I'd like to talk about 5 watch brands that I have needed to give a second chance to. And coming in at number 5 is Zenith. Now, I've owned the Defy Open or Skeleton dial, their classic 41. It is one of the very few watches that I regret moving on from, that I miss from time to time. It had just, there was no part of it that wasn't visually interesting, that wasn't impressive or beautiful. And it had one of the better bracelets in the business. And a lot of you know me, I love a good bracelet. And I think Zenith really excels in doing watches that have their roots in their history, El Primero or Defy. And they do really well with funky watches, with retro watches, with off the beaten path type of historic designs. And so I'd love to see Zenith maybe bring back one of their cool TV watches from the early 1970s or something like that. I think that could be very compelling. Zenith is a brand that supposedly only makes about 40,000 watches every year, which really isn't a lot when you compare it to Rolex's estimated 1 million. So it's a little bit of a smaller but highly respected Swiss brand. And coming in at number 4, as a brand I need to give a second chance to, is IWC. Now, I own the Pilot Chronograph 41, which I think is as well-rounded of a watch as you can get. It had an in-house column wheel movement. It had one of the best bracelets in the business, one of the best clasps in the business with a hidden quick adjustment system. It had phenomenal ARC on the Sapphire, a striking blue dial. The only thing that really kind of left me lacking with that piece was the lume. It certainly could have better lume or more lume on the dial. So I look at IWC and I really am drawn toward their pilot watches, more so than even like the Engineer, which is all the rage seemingly these past couple years. I love the big Pilot 43. I love even the 46 millimeter version, which has a 7-day movement, and it's a massive watch. I can barely pull it off myself, but fortunately, I have the frame, I have the wrist, I have the constitution to pull off a massive sports piece. In fact, I would even pick a 46 millimeter watch in most cases over a 36 millimeter diameter watch, as crazy as that may sound to some of you. So I like out IWC. If they came out with a big Pilot 43 or 46 with better lume or I don't know, another color or something that really draws me in, I think they excel with aviation pieces, and that's what would interest me the most moving forward. Now, coming in at number 3 is Hamilton. Now, I've been fortunate to stay at the birthplace of this brand. Hamilton was once an American brand, and what used to be their factory is now condos. So I've stayed at the old Hamilton factory, and I love the history of this brand. I think modern Hamilton excels with offering the value, great movements at affordable prices, drawing on their heritage and history, their back catalog. And so I'd like the maybe PSR watch or maybe one of their Murph watches. 42 would be my preference. But what I think would be so great, so if anyone at the Swatch group, hears this video, please reissue the prop watch that Hamilton supplied for Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, which debuted back in 1968. One of the most iconic films of all time, probably the best sci-fi ever made, and that prop watch was so cool looking. If Hamilton ever reissued that watch, I would be first in line to buy. So that's a suggestion for anyone at Hamilton or anyone at the Swatch group. Now, coming in at number 2 is Vacheron Constantin. I've only owned one watch from this brand. It was the 4500V, the overseas in stainless steel with the blue dial. Marvelous watch, gorgeous watch. The nicest watch, really, that I've ever owned. I'll be honest about that. When it comes to the finishing and the movement and the details And, when I look at this brand, I see them as a little less popular, more underrated than, say, Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet, the other brands that make up the quote unquote holy trinity of watch brands. And the watch that I really love from VC is the Historique 1921. That's that square watch with an off axis, dial that has the crown up at one of the corners of the case. And I just think it's quirky. I think it's gorgeous. And I love, if you were a pilot back in the 20s or 30s and you were piloting an aircraft, you could have a watch of that style with the dial side found on the palm portion of your wrist, strapped on there. So as you're holding the controls, you can glance down. And because of that off axis dial, you could easily read the time at a glance. And I think that's just really, I don't know, it's one of the little things that gets me as a crazy watch collector that a normal person just wouldn't understand the draw of. They go, okay, yeah, it's a tilted watch, big deal. But I go, hey, look at this. And that's part of the draw for me. So coming in at number one, the brand that I need to give a second chance to, that's shameful that I haven't returned to in all these years of watch collecting, is Panerai. Now, I've owned the PAM 176, which is a basic titanium luminor with a sandwich dial and an ETA movement that you can view through a sapphire display caseback. And that watch was awesome. I think I just would have preferred if it was stainless steel as opposed to titanium personally, because it's a big watch and I want to feel the weight of the steel. So I like modern Panerai, but I don't like modern Panerai as much as I like ETA Panerai. Give me a Panerai from 20 years ago. I think those are fantastic. They're a pretty simple service when it comes to that hand wind ETA movement. And there's just something very charming about old school Panerai. So I'd be most interested in a 111 stainless steel. It has that open display case back with that ETA movement, has the sandwich dial, has a sub-seconds, just, as essence of Panerai as it pretty much gets. And I've noticed as the years go on, there seem to be fewer and further between nice examples that pop up for sale on the used market. And so I'm kind of getting this FOMO that if I don't find one soon, I'm not going to find one. At least I'm not going to find one in good condition that hasn't been over polished or whatever the case may be. So I really need to find one, buy it, and enjoy it, because in 20 years from now, you're really not going to see them pop up, right? That's just the reality of watch collecting as time progresses. But those are my 5 watch brands that I need to give a second chance to. Again, those are Zenith, IWC, Hamilton, Vacheron Constantin, and Panerai, and they're all a little bit different from each other. When I think about Zenith, I think about funk, I think about history, I think about the quirkiness of some of those designs. When I think about IWC, I certainly think about pilot watches or aviation sport pieces. When I think about Hamilton, I think about the history, I think about the value for money, specifically the American history. When I consider Vacheron Constantin, the thing that comes to my mind most is that underrated nature of still being a Holy Trinity brand, but not being as popular or as in vogue as, say, Patek or Audemars Piguet. And then when I consider Panerai, I just think of old school charm of a chunky sport watch that you can take anywhere and do anything in and just look like a really cool dude when you do it. That's what I have for you today. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you have experiences with these brands or maybe some of the models that I've mentioned. I'll read through every single comment. I'd love to hear your personal experiences. Like this video if you got something from it. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would really help me out and I'd appreciate it. Thanks.